Hi, welcome back to SAS with a little bit of class. Today's ep is going to be a little bit more on the classy side. We're going serious, we're going all in. This ep actually wasn't in my little notes. I've got a little list of notes of eps I want to cover, and I was up the other night and I couldn't sleep, and I was thinking, why is this episode not in my notes? Bit of a strange one, because I think this topic is a massive factor and I feel like it needs to be discussed. Let's dive right in. Today's episode is all about toxic masculinity, and yeah, we're just going to dive right in. We've all got a male in our life. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's your boyfriend, your dad, your granddad, your uncle, your cousin, we've all got that masculine male figure, and we all have our own, probably roughly about the same idea as what your typical men, masculine alpha male figure is. How many times have you heard of a girl being ghosted, or maybe you're trying to have a serious conversation with your dad or your boyfriend, or even like a boy pal, anybody that's male, and they become totally defensive, standoffish, don't want to hear it. It goes from 0 to 100 quick because they feel attacked, they feel vulnerable, they don't know how to act. Same with the ghosting situation. To give you an idea, for example, watching Love Island, I actually felt really, really sorry for Harry. I feel like he's not had that space. Don't get me wrong, I actually don't know him personally, but this is the vibes I get. He's unable to process the emotions. He didn't really know how he was feeling. He acted on impulse. He was scared of feelings with Shakira and just called it off because he got scared. And I think that's because men don't have that environment, that safe space to talk about their emotions, to be vulnerable. For example, when do you ever see a boy walking into a doctor's without being literally dragged there from their mum or their girlfriend or their wife or anyone like that? Like, has a man actually ever phoned the doctors by himself? Doubt it. Because it's a vulnerable thing. It's shown as weakness. It's all get over it. Sorry, Love Island talk again. Same with Cash. Cash was crying and it's the talk of the season. But how many times did other girls cry and it's I can't even remember who cried and who didn't. But I remember Cash. Why? Because it's a massive thing. But why is it a massive thing? And I want to change that. I work in early years and I feel like we're doing quite a good job at tackling this toxic masculinity because I feel like it has been brought in from previous generations past them. I mean, boys are told at the start, boys don't cry, men don't cry, man up. Boys laughed at when they cry, called weak. And I feel like it's a very toxic thing that's been passed down. In early years, from ages 3, 4, and 5, we're teaching children what emotions are, the literal starting point that I don't think has been actually taught. And we're giving them that language, that safe space. How do you feel? And we're using that language, but we're not giving them the answer. We never ever say to the children, you feel sad. We don't know how they're feeling. We give them the options, we give them that visual, and we say, how are you feeling? Why do you think you're feeling like this? What could we do to help? We're giving the children from a very young age that empowerment to go, I feel like this because of this. And then teaching methods of how to self regulate. I don't even know if I was taught that in nursery, but obviously not very well because honestly, I go from 0 to 100 quick. I could be the happiest I've ever been, and in seconds someone annoys me and I'm like 100. And it's like, not good. God, my dad will text me saying, God, you've not had a meltdown in days. And I'll go, I know, definitely do one. And I feel like nurseries in my city are actually doing a really good job of this, having worked in a few. So if you have a child, be teaching them emotional regulation, please. Thanks. A little fizzy chart, a little colour monster book, you know? Anyway, so I know men, and I'm sure Connor won't mind me saying this. Sometimes he'll look dim and I'll go, oh, you seem a wee bit off, like, you seem a bit dim. And it's total defence. It's, no, I'm not, I'm fine. I'm like, okay. And I used to push it. I used to really push it. I used to go, oh, just tell us what's wrong. And I used to make it about myself, but have I done something? It's not about me, hun. Chill out. Do you know what I mean? And it took me a while to realise how frustrating that must be when you're trying to comprehend your own emotion and someone's in your ear going, you feel like this, do you feel like this? Why do you feel like that? And that must be so frustrating and so confusing. And to be fair, it must make the boys feel vulnerable because I know if I felt a type of way and I didn't really know why I was feeling or what I was feeling, It's a lot. I've seen him come up to me and go, "Remember when you said like 3 days ago that I was maybe feeling a wee bit dim? I think it was, and I think it was because of this." 3 days, and that's good for a boy, to be honest. Some boys never. Some boys can't comprehend and never can comprehend. And as soon as they feel any type of emotion that's a negative, seen as a negative emotion, the easiest and most common way for a man to show that is anger. And like I was saying, they get mainly told two things when they're growing up, and it's men don't cry and never hit a girl. I remember hearing that all the time in the playground. That used to be my favourite comeback, riling up the boys and going, "Oh, but you can't hit a girl." But then when you really actually take a minute and think about it, what other way do men have to comprehend feelings and emotions if they've never been taught? And maybe all they've seen is anger, and they've not really got that role model, and their role models probably were growing up was Green Street and Football Factory and all your kind of stuff like that. You've got rappers, Tupac, Biggie Small, that sexualise women, that talk about gang violence, and you wonder why they're all on the streets scrapping. Madness. Growing up, a lot of my boy pals didn't have a dad, so who are they to idolise? They didn't have that role model, didn't have that dad figure that took them to play games at the pitch, that took them to football games and things like that. They didn't have that. So who did I idolise? And who did they speak about that to? I remember having boy pals that would say to me, I was classed as one of the boys at school, and they would say to me, like talking to me was like talking to one of the boys, but they knew wouldn't go any further, and I wouldn't say they were weak, and I wouldn't be judgmental, and they could feel like they could say it to me. I'm like, how sad is that? I remember a boy telling me his gran had died and he didn't want to tell anyone because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that his gran's died and he's feeling sad about it. Wild. Absolutely wild. Another boy, he couldn't see his dad for a certain reason and he felt ashamed because he was missing his dad and he was 16 years old. Don't get me wrong, when he was telling me I was probably about 15, 16 as well, so I probably didn't give him the best advice, but it's mental. And if you do tell one of the boys, I guarantee you their first response will be, "I'll come to the pub." And I think that's probably the worst advice, but the only advice men have. Because really what they're saying is, "Oh, you've got high emotions, nice one, meet us at the pub and we'll do some drugs and drink." And then we'll probably go in town and we'll have a couple of scraps and show how tough we are, even though we feel like the weakest person here. I feel like it's about picking up on this toxic masculinity quick. Surely if your son's starting to punch walls, kick walls and throw their little Xbox controller at a wall, you're going to say something, no? And they're like, "Oh, mums are scared of their sons." Well, let's nip it in the bud then. Do you know what I mean? Let's do something about it now because it's getting out of hand. And I feel like all boys can really do is sit in a room on their own, which is the most depressing thing I've ever heard about in my life. And they feel like they really are speaking to people because they've got people in a wee party or whatever it's called. I'm not really done with the kids anymore. Evidently, they are literally in the room on their own. And what they're doing? Shooting people, probably. Stealing cars, maybe in this little game. Great for the minds, especially young kids. Or they're at a football game and it's not just team versus team, it's then side versus side. It's what side are you on? Oh, let's fight it out then. Maybe my team didn't win, but I will. It's that kind of mentality. And to be fair, after watching things like Football Factory, what else is there to do? And the next thing that comes is, "Oh, what gear have you got on? What clobber have you got? Where'd you get it from? Is it fake? Let's see the tag then." And that's what causes the divide. Who's got the spanking new trending trainers then? Oh, you don't. You're out the group. And I feel like there must be some sort of change because in nursery every single kid's the same. They all cry. Nobody says anything about, "Oh, you're a boy, boys don't cry." There's none of that. But you know where it does come in? Parents. But yeah, between somewhere of primary school and high school is when the switch happens, and that's when they all try to be men, and it's boys don't cry, and you're weak, and you can't hang out with us because you've not got the new trainers. And that's when the divide happens, and that's where fights start, and that's where the alpha males come in. And I tell you right now, but the biggest alpha male in your little group at school was the saddest. Because thinking back now, 100% agree. Like, oh yeah, they had a lot going on, but they were the alphas. I'm watching a lot of Pete Wicks. He's got a new podcast. It's called Man Made, and it's kind of all about this discussion. If you like topics like this, you'll absolutely love his podcast because he discusses this with men and women and of all ages and all backgrounds, and it's really interesting to see where they think that this alpha male masculine toxicity comes in. I think that's a good role model because now you've got role models like Andrew Tate. And I'm like, yeah, fantastic. Hope my little brother never finds him. From like a young age, I always felt like I was always pals with the boys. I bought a new doll, it'd be a boy. Teddy bear would be a boy. Everyone was a boy. Okay. And then growing up, I thought, oh, maybe if I had a kid, I'd want it to be a boy. But no, I'm thinking that I think I just have a wee soft spot for boys. I think it's I want to then be able to raise them right and kind of change that path. Talking about working in early years, you often get asked, mainly in service days, what's your reasoning? And if they don't ask you, they talk about it, they mention it like, oh, everyone has a reasoning. And for a long time, I actually didn't have a reasoning. I had no idea what my reasoning was. Which, by the way, is absolutely fine. So if you feel like you don't have a reasoning, that's totally fine. It'll either come to you, or maybe it won't. Maybe you're not in the right career. Maybe you are. You just don't have your reason yet. Totally fine, hon. Don't let them pressure you. But I feel like recently I've thought about why is it that I gravitate towards boys? Why am I one of the boys at school? Fuck, the girls hated me for it. And it was like, you're a slag. All the kind of names. Basically like the boys' free therapist. And I actually did want to be a therapist for a while. But then when I started looking into it and it was all social sciences, I thought, seems a bit too serious for me. So here I am in childcare. So basically I feel like I went into childcare because other than parents and families and things like that, we're basically front row for teaching and shaping young minds. And I feel like what a starting place to start teaching children about how to express their emotions. Like when girls say, oh my god, I don't understand boys, it's so hard to read. I understand them like the back of my hand. I know boys' next move before they even know it themselves. I know them really well. I don't know if that's growing up being a wee daddy's gal or whether it's because I spent a lot of time in primary school and high school with boys. I don't think it's that I like them better. I think it's that I want to help them. I want to change the narrative. I want the next gen to be of men to be open and honest. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if the next gen are able to discuss emotions, are able to sit down with their girlfriends and have a real conversation? I think one would have a lot more long lasting relationships. I think would have a lot less violence because let's face it, anger and violence go hand in hand. And if the only emotion that boys know how to face is anger, what comes next? It's violence. It's always going to be like that unless we change it. And I know me on my own, little old me, can't change anything to be honest. But I think starting a conversation is important, and that's what we're doing today. There's actually been a couple of podcasts and a book and that I would like to send to my dad because I think he would relate to, or even Connor, but I know they wouldn't read it. I know that they wouldn't even listen because what do they know? What, some boy that's famous for being famous? Not listen to that. And if you were to send me to your boyfriend or your husband or your brothers or your dads or whoever, they'd go, what, a 23-year-old girl? What does she know? But if you maybe you sneak in a wee serious convo, be gentle of course, because it will turn into an argument if not. But just sneak in and go, oh, what do you think about this? What about this? Because I do it with Connor all the time, and actually with my dad as well. And I love to ask like serious questions because I love a serious wee convo. I like to know how their brain works. That's probably why I know them inside out because I've asked them so many fucking questions. It's like men don't want to admit how they feel other than being fine, being fine or showing anger. That's the only two emotions I've ever seen a boy show. I feel like if we start teaching boys how to be confident within themselves and how to carry themselves well, and they could be that alpha all they want. But what's more alpha than being able to describe your feelings and talk about that and having that language? That's pretty alpha to me. On Pete Wicks' podcast that was on about before, Man Made, he asked a lot about what makes a good man or what would you say is a good man? And if you ask someone my age that, they go, oh, a boy that buys me flowers. How self-obsessed could you get? How materialistic could you get? And I know I'm probably offending a lot of people, so hold your hand when I say this. But come on, if you ask someone like me that question, I'd say, one, I've never let a boy in my life without doing a background check. It needs to be done. What makes a man is the people around him. So have a look at his parents, have a look at his family, who's he got friends on Facebook, who's his pals. Next step, go on a wee date. How does he talk to people? How does he talk to you? I feel like what makes a good man is you could say, yeah, communication, blah, 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 but who teaches him that? You've got to look at who's around that person, and that's who makes the man. And if it's a good man, then you'll have good people. If not, And I feel like you hear a lot of girls going, oh, I'm not here to like mother or breastfeed a boy. Okay, that's a bit intense, but you know what I mean. And I do actually get it. And it's all like, my next man, like my man would like already know how to act. But who's taught him that? Another girl. I would rather do it myself. What else is he meant to learn? If he's not got that supportive background, that open space to speak, to ask questions, to be vulnerable with like either his friends or his mum or anyone in his life, then what else? How else is he meant to learn? And I absolutely love having educational conversations. It's like the most fun thing. Teaching your boyfriend any day. And then they teach you things you go, oh, I didn't think about it like that actually. I think it is really important that we give men the space and maybe a little bit of compassion, talk them through how they're feeling and give them that language and give them that reassurance that it's actually fine to feel like that. Like it's totally okay. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. A little bit of food for thought. You might not agree with everything I said, but I hope I've managed to get my point across. Yeah, bit of a more serious ep. I think it's an important conversation to be had. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Can I also just say the response that I got, the messages, the DMs, everything that I received from the first episode is wild. Everyone was absolutely loving it. So thank you so much, and I hope you like this one a little bit more. And I'll see you next Sunday. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you later. Bye. Mwah.